You'll have to excuse any coughing and spluttering. A bit of the man flu is hitting me, I think. So apologies in advance. I'm just getting set up to make sure everything's all good and that people can hear me and everything. If you can, if you can see me and hear me, just mention so in the chat. Hey David, hope you're well. Joshua, hope you're well. So yeah, I'm just waiting for Skype to kick in. Evening, Greg. I hope you're well. Jeffrey, I'm alright. Apologies in advance once again. I seem to be a recurring thing for being way behind on Facebook and what have you. I have fallen way behind again. And apologies for that. Great, thank you, Jeffrey, for that confirmation. So yeah, yeah, as I say, apologies for delays. I'm going to do my best over the next day or so to try and catch up on Facebook again. It just seems to be a constant battle of being able to catch up. And like I've always said, and I'll say again, the best way of getting hold of me is to WhatsApp or text me on my mobile, which is 07887 345 600. That's 07887 345 600 if you're outside of the UK, +44 7887 345 600. That's the easiest, quickest way of getting back to me, of ensuring that I'll be able to get back to you within a day, because Facebook I just can't keep up. But anyway, so just give me a second and then we will crack on. Marshall, good to see you. David, good to see you. Craig as well, thank you. We've got people watching on YouTube. We've got people watching on Facebook. Excellent, great, that's good, thank you for that. Just give me a second, guys, and I will. I just need to get this sorted out so that we can crack on and get ready. Okay. Okay. I'm going to get Gary on in a little while, but I can't see him yet on Skype, so we'll do that. We'll do that in a little while. So, a bit of a kind of a recap, really. Eddie, Belgium watching, good to hear. Natasha, welcome. So everybody can see, great. So yeah, a bit of a recap, and also a few questions to you guys actually. Yeah, Chris, it went well. I'm going to bring Gary on to talk to you about that in a little while, Chris. As soon as Gary's on Skype, I'll be bringing him in as well. So a bit of an update on my end, real quickly. The house is being worked on, and we're aiming for a mid-January, all being well. Mid-January move date, all being well. We'll see, but that's kind of timeline we're aiming for. We'll see. A lot of work to be done on it. So yeah, it's going. It's all being plastered, and once the house is sorted, then we can start working on the outside, including the lofts. So yeah, looking forward to that. For those of you who are asked, let me just see if Gary's on Skype yet, and we can crack on. So while I'm doing this, like I said, it was it's a bit of a look back and a looking forward session, really. Plus, it's also asking you your opinions on some stuff. So a little bit of a different show to normal. Kind of reviewing the last, well, what is now 9 months really since the whole RPI thing started. And as I said, looking forward to next year and seeing what you guys want more of, and telling you more about what we're planning as well. Gary, if you're watching, I can't see you on Skype, mate, so if you could see if you can fire up Skype, that would be great, and I can get you on. So yeah, while I'm waiting for that to happen, I will crack on. So we're not just waiting on that. For those of you who didn't see last week, if you didn't happen to catch last week, go back. You can go and go on the YouTube channel, the RPI YouTube channel, and you can see my recap of the China trip. We mainly talked about China on there, really, but like I said on there, mind-blowing trip, really, and some of the questions as to why the sport is taking off so much over there compared to places in Belgium. The answer really comes down to gambling, and the gambling that is involved in the sport over there. And like I also said last week, you know, it's easy to see and hear all of the stories about the big money over there, and ultimately there is some big money over there. But the other reality is that, you know, 95% of flyers out there are completely normal people. They're completely normal working class, middle class guys that aren't super wealthy and don't have lots of money. You know, like I said, 95% of people that were at that show were just regular guys. The only difference is that at club level, they would bet on their races probably at a higher level than people in Europe would. And that's really it. So it's easy to get caught up in the idea that the pigeon sport is entirely wealthy in China. It's not. There's a few people over there that are incredibly wealthy, but the large percentage are normal guys. And definitely that show showed that, you know. Essentially that show was the equivalent of one of the big shows over here in Europe, and that was the same makeup. 95% of people were completely normal. Normal guys, just, you know, flying as a hobby, perhaps with the extra, like I said, it's a hobby, but with the extra idea that there is more gambling going on over there at a higher level than perhaps over here, and that's it. But if you didn't watch it, then make sure and go and have a look. It's on the YouTube channel, and it's also on rpilive.com as well. You can go and see it on RPI Live, the replay on there as well. So yeah, I can't see Gary on Skype yet, so we'll come back to that. I had an interesting email this week which I wanted to talk about, which I haven't yet replied to, but I am going to. And the email was actually a prison email. Over in the US, inmates have a regulated, monitored email system that people can use. And I had an email from such a system and an inmate, which was really interesting. The email, the inmate in question has served a long time in prison, but he gets the Digest magazine on a monthly basis within the prison, and he'd been reading my articles, my original stuff that I put out in March and May, and he had some good input and some good feedback for me, and it was interesting and quite mind-blowing, really, to when you think about where I think about where all of my articles have actually have ended up. And I've got an inmate that's done a very long time in prison reading my articles and commenting. He'd always been interested in pigeons, and he said that he very rarely ever contacts anybody, but he contacted me, and that was a privilege, and I'm going to be in correspondence with him and writing back. But yeah, it was quite mind-blowing, really, to think that my articles have reached so many people. And I am going to be doing another article. I've been planning it for the last couple of months. I'm going to be doing an article kind of looking back at the year and covering what I've been up to as well. So yeah, that was interesting. I had some feedback last week on the community lofts idea. Some people liked it, some people didn't. And I guess that's the nature of the beast. I think it's a good idea in principle. Would it work in practice? I guess it's down to the people that are involved to see if it would actually work in practice or not. I think the idea of smaller lofts run by clubs or a group of people that represent a club are a good idea. That it gets, what are the biggest problems? We talked about this off and on all year. What are the biggest problems with what people have at the moment with the sport? And the biggest problems are it takes a lot of time and energy and effort, and it takes a lot of money. Now, they're the two biggest things. The third thing that comes up a lot, which is something I hadn't thought of when I kind of started RPI, but it does come up a lot, that actually in certain countries and certain places, counties, and within Europe, but specifically within the UK, actually keeping racing pigeons in your garden or a place increasingly becomes an issue, because the councils have got rules and regulations about it. And they're the three things: so time, money, and location. And to me, let's go with them, that they're the biggest things. I think the idea of a community club loft, so like I said, a group of people get together and they centrally own and run a loft, and a maximum amount of birds, a maximum amount of pigeons per flyer are allowed in that loft. And that loft is kind of like a little mini one loft race, but actually it's all the birds being trained together, but it's actually the individual flyers competing against each other, kind of like a mini one loft race. Now that would prevent, assuming it was set up right and the right people were in charge and got the right set of rules, i.e. who's in charge of what, it would cut down massively the time needed and the money needed for people to keep their own pigeons. Now, of course, people could still keep their own pigeons. That goes without saying. but it would also give a lot of people the ability to be able to keep a few birds without actually having to have the big financial cost. And different clubs could pick different rules. You could have some clubs or lofts that only have a 6-bird limit, some that only have a 20-bird limit. You could have, one club could say, right, we've got a 30-bird per flyer limit and we're only having 6 flyers. Whatever, different combinations. But if it was all made the same to level the playing field, then you've got a situation where you could have really top end flyers competing against guys that are up and coming. Now, what also you could do is you could then have imagine, for the purposes of this, Stephen, how are you? Evening. Andrew Walton, how you doing, mate? Soren, how are you, mate? The dog's coming over on Sunday. Thank you, Soren, for all your help. Martin Shepherd. Yeah, kind of like private clubs, but Martin, kind of like that. Imagine the idea of a club now. Let's say a club that's got 6 members. And each of those members have a certain amount of birds in a loft. That's the base idea. And all of those pigeons are competing against each other on a weekly basis. Therefore, cutting down the amount of time individuals need to look after. Obviously, somebody would have to be in charge of caring for the birds, and that goes without saying. But there's various extensions there. You could get non-fanciers, non-flyers keeping birds in that community loft. That's the kind of vision of it. And then essentially what then you've got is you've got then the ability so let's say you've got that club section, you've got that club loft set up, right? Then if you just said, right, there's one loft per county. Now this is just a numbers idea. You could potentially have 1 or 2 lofts per city. That's there's no major there's no limits on this thing, the idea of it. But you imagine that. So imagine, let's say to start there was 1 loft per county. Sorry, I've got Gary messaging me about Skype. And then imagine if it grew. Imagine you had 1 per city or town or over a period of time. Then imagine each of those community or club lofts, whatever you want to call them, imagine then that they then compete together. So eventually what you would have is you'd have these mini competition lofts where individual flyers are competing against each other's birds, going back to the same loft every week during racing season. And in theory, there's no reason why these community lofts, yes, in theory, every bird would have to be registered to one person or organisation. There's a few things like that, but then there's no reason why those community lofts couldn't be sent with the local clubs and the feds, therefore competing at that level to again cut costs. So we're not talking about having to have these individual lofts training and racing their own birds. You could integrate that with local clubs and feds. I can see Gary online now, so that's all good. We'll get him on in a few minutes. But then each of those individual lofts can compete excuse me guys, each of them lofts can compete together on a local, a county, a section if need be, and a national level. Now imagine that, and all of these lofts are built up, and that could be a massive thing over a period of time. And I think that's a different way of looking at it, because at the moment the harsh reality is, just looking at the numbers, that club racing in Europe, or in most parts of Europe, is dying on its backside, just from looking at the numbers. And these kinds of ideas are the kind of thing that something radically needs to happen and change. So yeah, I'd like your opinions on that more. We were talking about that last week, and I've had quite a lot of feedback on it. Some people don't think it'd work. Some people think it's a great idea. I would love your opinions on it, to tell me what you think, really. You know, that would be really, I'd appreciate any more feedback you've got on that, because I think it's potentially a great thing. Right, let's get Gary on now. 1 second. Get Gary on. Give me a minute. Do. 1 second, guys. We will get there in a minute. Now it's not showing him online, but he is online. While I'm trying to get him online, Michael says I'll come back to your point in a minute, Michael. 1 second. Let's see if we can get Gary on. There he is. Got him. Let me just bring him on. 1 second. You there, mate?
Yeah, mate. Phone line problems, as you know.
Yes. Well, I'm going to kill my video to you so it doesn't. But you can still, if you can still see me, then great.
No, like I say, as you know, we've got major phone line problems. It's been ongoing now for a week. There's been a lot of installation.
Yeah. Well, we can hear you just about. If you can't hear Gary, guys, let me know. But I've done the best I can to get him on.
Yeah, it's saying it's a poor connection. That's my phone line.
Yeah, we can hear you enough. The picture's a little bit bitty, but we can hear you enough, so that's all right, mate. Can you hear me all right?
You've just come through then, so I don't know what's. I would say it's the phone line issue. What's the problem?
Yeah, what we'll do is no, people can't hear you. What we're going to do is I'm going to try and call you on the phone, mate, and we'll just put you on speaker. We'll get him back on the phone. I'll get you back on the phone, Gaz.
Right. No.
Apologies about that, folks. Technicals, don't you just love them? I'll get him back on the phone in a minute. But yeah, just going back to the the community loft idea. Michael said the community loft idea really doesn't make it any less expensive because you still need a loft to breed from to create the birds to fly. Or are these just for people that wire young birds and then fly? Well, there's a couple of ways around that. You could obviously just, you could start with young birds, but at the same time, as part of that same loft, you could, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't have a stock loft as part of that setup. So that, again, as part of the stock loft, the individual flyers within the loft have a maximum of 2, 3 or 4 pairs within the stock loft, and they're all cared for and looked after together. Therefore, you don't actually have to keep your own stock. There's a lot of different ways of doing it. You could do it like the one loft races do it at the moment, where you could buy birds in, or you could just have a small stock loft at home to breed birds yourself. And then for people that didn't want to keep any pigeons themselves, there's all kinds of different potential ways. You went on to say that even if the case, most expensive part racing is buying the stock and the entry fees for the races. Yeah, and again, part of the expenses is the stock, of course. But again, like I said, there's a lot of different options to be able to actually get the stock in there. Again, a centralised stock loft is one idea. The same thing. It's just trying to think outside the box. Your comments there, Michael, are just focusing on the money side of it, and the money's not just the only thing. The time thing is a big thing, and the location and the space is another. They're the kind of 3 biggest things that I've identified this year why people either get out of the sport or don't compete as they would want to. Obviously, the raptor issue is another issue. That's a big issue, I get that. But that's an issue for all of us, pretty much the same. Time, money, and space are the 3 things that I've kind of identified in the last 9 months or so as to why people either pack up, have packed up, or don't race or participate in the way that they would want. And it's trying to think of ideas, again, outside the box. This is why, like I said before, this is why I'm such a big fan of One Love Racing, because I think it has the ability to bring more people in and get more people involved without having that time, money, commitment. And the idea I've just been talking about for the last 10 minutes or so is an extension of figuring out what else we can do to get people interested, And also, not just new people interested, but people that perhaps in the past have been interested, but no longer have the time, money, or space, or any one of them things to be able to keep pigeons, Again, it's that thinking outside of the box thing. So yeah, it's just an idea, but I'd love more feedback on it, because I think it's something that needs discussing more, because there's some good ideas that came out of last week's discussion about it. Looking back, if I look back a little bit at where this all started. This all started with me putting an article in the British Homing World back in March. Excuse me. And I'd still been getting the British Homing World I've been getting the Homing World off and on for years. but I wrote in there, and I'd still been on Facebook, certain pigeon groups and what have you, but I actually just wrote an article in the Homing World about my ideas on the sport, where it was going, what was wrong with it, and what have you. And that's kind of how the whole thing kind of started and kicked off, really. And since then, I did another one as well, a follow-up to that. Like I say, I do need to do another one. And since then, this whole thing has kind of just took off from that article, really. It's kind of something that I never really planned properly or in any way. It's just kind of happened. And if I look back at the last 9 months, you know, it's been a hell of a 9 months, really. It's took me around the world. It's took me to Ireland a few times. It's took me to Portugal, to Germany, to Romania, to China, various places around the UK. And it's been pretty mad, really, considering it was an article just voicing my opinion about the sport. One of the first things I said in that article was that there's nothing wrong with money. And I still think that. I still think there's a weird, in certain elements of the racing pigeon sport, there is still some weird opinions about money. And for many reasons, maybe. Typically, the sport many years ago was a very working class men's sport. Typically, it was a mining town sport. It was a very working class sport. But the anti-money element of it seems to be, if actually increased, if not anything. There seems to be more of that element now than there has been before. And like I've said before, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with money. And I actually firmly believe that to enable this sport to progress and expand and develop, that money needs to come into the sport. One of the reasons that the sport is dying on its backside in certain places around Europe is the fact that there's not enough money in it. And again, I don't want to keep going back to China too much, but with the Chinese trip that I did, like I said when I did the report last week about it, the increase in sheer numbers of in the amount of people participating in the sport in China is purely driven by gambling. And not, in theory, gambling is illegal in China. In practice, there's a hell of a lot of gambling that goes on within pigeon racing in China and Taiwan. And actually, very normal working class people have had their lives changed by pigeon racing and winning certain pigeon races. Now that is something we don't really see here. Maybe you'll get somebody winning a big international race over here and they will go and sell their bird, the winner, to someone for a decent amount of money, and maybe that may change their life. But their lives over in China, your life can be changed just out of winning a race from the prize money alone. And we all know over here that the prize money for winning any race, really, even an international race, is pretty small, really. And going back to the idea that, there's almost an anti-money thing in the sport, I think that's wrong. And I think that people say that money is ruining it in the sport. What I would do is I would agree that to a degree, it ruins it based on how the sport is now. And what I mean by that is we don't have any league system really in the UK, probably in Europe. There's no league system. So it means that a new starter is competing with a seasoned flyer. And ultimately, some of those new flyers are going to get pretty disheartened pretty quickly against getting beat every week by the seasoned flyer. In that case, there should be a league system. At the same time, you get a normal guy racing, 5, 10, maybe 15 pigeons a week against someone that can afford to keep a lot of pigeons and race 50 or 100 a week. Again, that's not fair. Now, again, flip side of that argument is that it only takes one pigeon to win a race. But when you start playing numbers games, I think there should be a league system. Obviously, there's some clubs that have maximum birdage per flyer and so, but I don't get why we don't have a league system. Because then, in theory, the idea that money ruins the sport gets thrown out. Because I still insist that, as proven in some of the one-off races that I've covered this year, you can get what would have been a £50 bird before it won the race that wins races against £500 or £1,000 birds. And I disagree with anybody that says, how can I or one compete with £500 or £1,000 birds? Because these one-off races that I've been covering this year have shown that seemingly normal flyers and normal birds can compete with any birds. I know for a fact in Gary's race, I've just got Gary trying to call me on Skype audio now. Let's see if this works. Hey Gary.
How can I, the one, compete with 500?
Hey Gary. No, he's gone. I think we're going to have to give up on that and perhaps do that next week. As I say, looking at Gary's race that I covered, the winner of that race, with all due respect to the flyer who entered it, was a very normal backyard flyer, and that pigeon would have been a £50 bird before it won the race, and it competed against 720 pigeons, and it ended up winning the race. Now, for a fact, there were pigeons that you would have had to have spent £500 per pigeon just to buy the bird in that race, and this seemingly normal pigeon won that race. So I don't go with the idea that, how can we compete, when people have said, how can we compete against these big money birds? If you've got good quality stock and they're trained right and they're looked after right, you can compete with £500 to £1,000 birds. But I think a league system then means that any normal back garden flyer can work up the league and be competing with anybody, while at the same time not disparaging new starters who start in a lower league and move up. Football does it. Why does the sport of pigeon racing not do it? I think a league system is a must. moving forward. So the argument of money ruining the sport, I actually think money is needed in the sport in a big way. If you look at darts, we've said about this year before, if you look at darts, if you look at snooker, it's money and promotion that's come into that to make it big and to make it a massively growing thing compared to where they were at 10 years ago. And we need something along the same lines. So if I look back at this year, it's been a blast of a year. It's been a busy year. Thank you, Stephen Kennedy. I'm glad you think that league system is the way to go. Andrew Walton says, what's the drug testing like in China? Good question, Andrew. I don't really know, to be honest. I've got a load of magazines there, which I plan to go through over the next few weeks and months. But I don't know. I'll have to find out. I now know people to ask those questions to, so I can let you know, Andrew. So yeah, looking back at 2019, it's been a mad 9 months, and it's grown. RPI has grown to where I never genuinely intended it to do so, and there's loads of new things that are happening as a result of it. And actually, it makes it even more interesting going into 2020. Going into next year, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I'm not a massive Christmas fan. I think it's a pain in the backside, and that's not anything against anybody who's religious. If you're religious and you celebrate Christmas, then that's good luck to you, and that's your complete right. And I, support anybody in their beliefs, no matter what they are. And if Christmas is a special time for you religious-wise, that's absolutely great. But the holiday of Christmas is not in any way, shape or form for a lot of people connected to religion. And I've not been a fan of Christmas for a long time because I think it's a lot of effort, a lot of people spending money they haven't got. It disrupts business. I've had in the past people say to me in a business sense, oh, it's December now, you're not going to get anything done now, it's Christmas. I'm like, it's not bloody Christmas yet. It's Christmas perhaps a week before, you can say that, but I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of all the hoo-ha and although the entrepreneur in me supposedly should be into marketing and sales, the other part of me says, Christmas marketing and getting people to buy stuff they don't really need and promising. It's amazing that adverts all make it sound that if you buy this thing or you eat this food or you drink this drink, it's going to make you have a magical Christmas. And I'm into marketing and I don't get it. But anyway, that's my little moan over. I'm not a massive fan. I'm far more of a fan of New Year's than I am Christmas. But going back to what I was saying, looking forward into New Year, I think if I look back to how I started this, a lot of what I'm planning going into the new year is not where I thought it would be. Some of the things I'm going to be doing in the new year I had no idea or even thought of, which is part of life, and that's great. I think using the base of what I've developed this year, I'm looking forward to going into next. It's only a week. It's only a month tomorrow that we're at Blackpool, which I'm looking forward to, and Alexander Zandi, my son, who's coming with me, is looking forward to as well. And that kind of kicks the year off, really. Blackpool. I haven't been there in 4 years. I went there 4 years ago. Prior to that, I hadn't been there in years and years. So I'm looking forward to going to Blackpool. But one of the questions, without me carrying on going on my own thing, is what I want to know from you watching this is more of what you want to see me and RPI and people around me working on RPI and with me. What you want to see moving forward going into next. Now, I'm not promising we're going to do everything everybody says, but I'd like to get your ideas more on what you would like to see. Now I know more people, I know some people, excuse me, will say loft visits, more loft visits. And I'm completely up for that. But just as Aaron mentioned, and a big thank you, by the way, while I mention him, a big thank you to Aaron. Aaron messaged me in the summer after he'd watched a few things, RPI things. And he messaged me saying, I want to get involved. And he was the first person to do it. I want to get involved. I like what you're doing. I want to be a part of it. Bang. That was it. And Aaron's been a part of RPI, and he's now representing Gary's race, Who Dares Wins race in Ireland, and he's such a good guy. And a big thank you to Aaron for your input and involvement this year. And moving forward into next, you're going to see a lot more of Aaron doing things. So yeah, moving forward into next year, I'm still going along the lines of I want to shake up and revolutionize this sport. I have some plans. I have some plans relating to RPI and more things we're going to do. I want to up the game on the video stuff. I have some other commercial related plans. But I want to know what else you think you would like to see me and RPI and the people around me should be doing, and what you would like to see. Now, I know some people will say more loft visits, and I'm completely up for that. And I like the idea of visiting smaller lofts as well as bigger lofts. But the harsh reality of loft visits is not a lot of small guys want to have loft visits. This is what I found, and Aaron's found so far. Not a lot of smaller guys want videoing and them round doing lives and what have you. And we found that. Now, each to their own, and that's completely up to them. I've been criticised for only doing what some people see as the bigger lofts, although I should say when I was in Romania I did very small lofts, and those guys were welcoming to have me. And actually Cosmin, who's I can see he's on, big thank you for him again for getting those smaller flyers, great flyers but smaller lofts, on board for me to go and interview. I'm up for interviewing smaller lofts and going and doing loft visits together with Aaron and whoever else comes on board next year. But we have actually found it, there's not actually that many people that want them. So yeah, what else do you want to see from RPI? There's new stuff coming up. I've already mentioned some of the new stuff coming up. From a pure RPI point of view, I want to up the videos stuff. I want to up the game there. We're going to be doing a bunch of stuff, including the merchandise is finally going to get done and all of that stuff. And there are some new things happening. RacingPigeonNetwork.com is finally going to get out with new software. There's things happening, which is exciting. But I'd like to know what else you would like to see happening and what else should be done. Because I'm now in that stage. It happens every year. Just so happens that I'm sharing it with you this year. That I'm now in a planning stage going into the next year for 2020. So I'm planning what I'm going to do. And again, I'll speak to you this time next year and I'll say, right, what we planned here didn't quite happen. Good, bad, some things changed, some things got better, some things got dropped. That's just the general way of things happening. Whatever I plan to do at the beginning of the year never normally happens exactly. But at least you have to have a plan to start. And that's what I'm doing now. So I'd appreciate feedback on that. Let's... Sorry, guys. The man flu's kicking in a little bit. Let's catch up with some comments. League system is the way to go. Oh, I already read that out. Sorry. Stephen Kennedy, how's the making of Gary's DVD going? When will it be available and can I pre-order a copy? Well, that's what I was trying to get Gary on to talk about, Stephen. To answer your question, we filmed the first of 4 planned DVDs on Friday, and we both had, Gary's had a lot more than me, but we both had people saying to us, you should do DVDs of these, the information that Gary's got and knows. And as a result of so many people saying it, you said, let's do it. And for those of you who've been watching me throughout, when I started, I've had the idea of racing pigeon sport videos are antiquated. DVDs are antiquated. I think it needs to up its game. I said that back in May time. And I had the idea of like a Netflix for pigeons. And that's still something that I'm looking at. But going back to Gary's stuff specifically, essentially RPI is producing a video of Gary talking about, in the first video will be Widowhood, and we're actually planning 3 more videos. So to answer your question, Stephen, the work is ongoing, and the DVD and the video will be available at Blackpool. That will be the launch weekend. Will be at Blackpool. We don't yet have the ability to pre-order it, but we will soon have that for online. And that's when it'll be. It'll be launching Blackpool weekend. Michael Howard says it's time the union put the money from your fees back into the sport. I would agree, Michael, but again, is it going to happen? Going back to my community loft or club loft idea, actually, that could be a club in its own right. An organisation based as a club in its own right with individual lofts, and that's the kind of thing that I think it should be. And then the money, if it was set up as a business and run as a business, but the difference being is it didn't have shareholders, it had no shareholders, but it had members, and all the money goes back in as a non-profit thing. That you could then put prize money back into the pot, all kinds of stuff. Excuse me. But yeah, I would agree, Michael. Kerry Hughes, when can the when can I have the DVD of Gary's? I'm not going to Blackpool. Kerry, you'll be able to get it. We'll be putting the online ordering up there Blackpool weekend, and you'll be able to order it online. And while we're talking about this, as I say, Gary's supposed to have been coming on talking about it, but he's got. I was over there on Friday, as I said, and he's got some major internet issues, and I tested all his stuff, and he only found out from BT that he's got some major telephone line issues, which is why it's so slow and why he couldn't get on today. What I will say about this, what I'm doing with Gary in the DVD, is that with RPI, I've always tried to think outside the box, make it different, up the game, and all of those kinds of things. And although the market outside of pigeon racing and the sport, not that many people buy DVDs anymore, in harsh reality. Streaming is where it's at. But you always have to cater to your market. And the market still requires, people think back in the early days I was putting random questions and polls out on Facebook just for the fun of it. And actually, I wasn't. Occasionally I'd ask a question just for the fun of it, but a lot of what I was asking was based on some other thought going on. And I asked the question about DVDs versus online, and overwhelmingly it was a 50-50 mix. People still wanted a physical DVD, half of people wanted it online. Now, excuse me. Excuse me, folks. The throat's giving way. Now, when you get a reaction like that, a 50-50 split, with no overwhelming one or the other, you've got to cater to both. So, we're going to do both. There will be a DVD, and there will be an online version that people can download and stream, or stream. So we're going to do both. And in addition, we'll have an audio version as well, because the reality of the DVD is, yes, there'll be some elements of it are visual, but a lot of it's audio, and people want to be able to hear it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have an audio version as well. And I also said to Gary, and we discussed, I think we've discussed this live before, that in addition to the DVD, we should actually have a book made out of it, because I know, for one, depending on what I'm reading about or learning, I like to have a book to refer to. So we're actually going to be making a book. Now, I'm not promising the book part will be available for Blackpool. Excuse me again. I'm not promising the book will be available for Blackpool. I'm going to try my best to get the book available for Blackpool, but what I am guaranteeing is the DVD will be available for Blackpool. But hopefully the book. So it's about making, like I said, it's about making it different. It's about upping the game of the sport. It's about just upping the game is the thing. So you're going to have DVD. Also, you're going to have the video in DVD format and online and streamable and downloadable, so people can watch it on their mobile phone if they want, or their iPad. Because the first thing I do whenever I get a Pigeon DVD is I'll go and put it in a USB DVD thing I've got, hook it into my computer, and go and convert it as a digital file, because there's no way I'm going to watch a DVD. I don't even possess a DVD player anymore. I just have this DVD thing that plugs into my computer to convert stuff. So for me, obviously, DVDs are pretty useless, because everything I do is either on my phone, on my computer, or on my iPad. But obviously a lot of people want it on there, so that's what we're going to do. So we're doing the video in different formats. We're going to have an audio version of it available, and if you buy the DVD or the downloadable version, you'll get the audio as well, because again, people want to listen to it in their car or whatever. Then we'll have a book version of it as well. So they're the different things we're doing. But here's the other thing. And again, I might be giving some ideas away to other people, but this is just the start of this, because I really want to shake up. The idea of doing the video stuff that I talked about back in May, June, I kind of forgot because I got busy with other stuff, and then people started asking about this DVD of Gary's since he's been coming on the show. It's kind of kicked that back up, that idea. So I want to look to do, and we're planning to do 4 with Gary, but I'm looking to do other ones with other people as well. But, so yeah, you're going to have the video, the audio, and we're going to do a book with it as well. And in addition to that, there's a lot of information that Gary gives. So, like, for instance, my Zandi, he's going to start racing next year. He's going to want like a calendar or a cheat sheet on his inside of his loft to have planned out what he's going to do. We're looking to get those done as well as part of it. So you get the book, you can read it all, but you're going to have cheat sheets in there and a whole Monday do this, week 1, Monday do this, Tuesday, and make it as easy as possible, people. Again, thinking outside of the box and up in the game. In addition to that, this is not going to get done for Blackpool, but in addition, going into next year, each and every one of these videos will be translated into all the main languages as well. that's something we're going to work on as well. So Gary's work and whoever else I get involved with will be translated into up to 12 languages, because it's important. English is not just, English is a big language, but Spanish is the second biggest language, I think, around the world, and maybe in the third. Chinese, Romanian, Polish, French, Dutch, German, all of those languages, eventually all of this work that I'm doing with Gary and any others I'll be doing down the line will be done into different languages. And as well, I know that we have a couple of deaf people that also try and tune in, and I've been asked for captions on the videos I do, which is a hard thing to do on an individual basis, on a regular thing. Something I'm looking into. In fact, all of the videos that I do on YouTube now are captioned, because it automatically does them to quite a high standard. So this video, the replay of this video you're watching now, will be captioned on YouTube. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually have the video in English captioned as well, because we want to cater to everybody. And we want to cater to people who may be deaf or have some hearing problems that may want to read it as they're watching it or trying to watch it. So they're the stuff we're doing. So yeah, Sean, it'll be DVD and paper form, book form as well. Kerry, yeah, the CD, maybe we'll do CD with the audio version as well. That's fine. We can do that, and the video one. And the DVD with the video DVD will be, Andrew, the DVD will be £25. But again, you'll get access to be able to watch that online as well as part of it. So yeah, that's what we're looking to do. So exciting stuff. Plus, as well, still planning to launch a betting site for the sport, which will enable you to be able to have a pool bet on any one-off race in the world, and potentially down the line other races as well. That's something I'm looking to work on, because I genuinely believe that will help, and I think it's needed as well. And I don't see why it shouldn't be done, but we're working on. I'm looking at working on that, including RacingPigeonNetwork.com and all the other stuff I've talked about as well. So yeah, couldn't get Gary on. Hopefully his Skype will be fixed for next week. Just so you know, we are going to have a show next week as well. Yeah, £25, Stephen. But like I said, we're going to be including in that a bunch of other stuff as well, not just the DVD. You'll be able to download the cheat sheets. You'll be able to download the diary that we're going to put with it all, and there's a load of stuff that you'll get extra. And the other big thing as well, which I didn't mention, is that anybody that's bought the DVD or the book will have a specific place online, a forum essentially, a question and answer forum. And anybody that's bought it will be able to go to a place online and ask Gary any question and get an answer direct from Gary. And again, that's thinking outside the box. I've watched some of these DVDs I've got here that I've bought, and I've got questions in my head, and I would like to ask the people that have done them those questions. Which, unless you know the person, you can ring him up, is not possible. So I've said, again, let's think out of the box and up the game. Somebody's given you the money to listen and learn what you've done. People should be able to ask questions that have bought the product, and that's what we're going to do. So there will be a dedicated area to anybody that's bought this video or the book to ask any questions to Gary that they want, and Gary will get back within a day or so and reply to each and every one of them questions that comes. That's something else we're going to be doing as part of it, which again is up in the game as far as I'm concerned, and taking things to the next level, which is what I'm about. So yeah, so there will be a show next week. There will be a show next week. There will be no show excuse me. There'll be no show Christmas week. It's going to have a week off Christmas week. I may do an impromptu live, but there'll be no official show on the 30th, I believe that is. That the 30th? Let's have a look. Yeah, so there'll be no show on the 30th. I may do one, but no planned show anyway. I may do a live or something, but there'll be a show next week on the 23rd, as normal. And then the next official show will be on the 6th. But in the meantime, before then, you can go back to rpilive.com and watch replays. And remember now, you're watching this wherever you're watching it, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, any of the social media, wherever you're watching it, you can also watch it on rpilive.com. You can go to rpilive.com and you can watch all of the live videos that we do. Haven't yet got the commenting system on there worked out yet, but you can actually watch the video, you just can't comment. But obviously stick to your social media if you want to be able to comment and get involved that way. And yeah, Racing Pigeon Network, I'll be honest, I haven't been feeling great, and I should have got it done by now, but it will get done. It'll get done before New Year's Day, I promise that, because I really want to get Racing Pigeon Network. I've got a lot of plans with that going into next year. And the new software we've got, all being well, is going to work and do what it needs to do to build that network. So yeah, any more ideas you've got moving forward into next year, what you would like to see us do, get involved with, who, people, where, stuff, let me know. And thank you as well for joining me on this journey. It still blows my mind that the amount of people that have watched my videos, the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of views my videos have had, my live broadcasts have had, and the replays have had throughout this last 9 months. It blows my mind. It genuinely is humbling and quite mad, really. What a journey. And thank you to everybody. And again, looking forward to 2020. Let's see where the year takes us. But I would love your opinion and feedback on what it is you would like to see us get involved in. In the meantime, I'm going to go and do one of my concoctions, which involves a lemsip, a baraka, a load of honey and hot water. And I may follow that up by a Bailey's as well. Try and get rid of this man food before it kicks in, because I really don't need to be ill. Got too much to be doing at the moment. Oh, by the way, I did post it on Facebook. I have a new dog coming on Sunday morning. Luca is his name. He's a Belgian Malinois. I'm excited to get him. He's in no way, shape or form. Nobody could ever replace my Bella, who I lost this year. Still get upset about her now, actually, and still think of her a great deal. She was an amazing dog. She was a German Shepherd. I couldn't bring myself to have another German Shepherd anytime soon, ever, because, well, not ever, but certainly anytime soon, because I'm in no way, shape or form over the loss of my Belle at the moment. And actually, weirdly, without wanting to bring it down before we finish, actually the loss of her has affected me more than any other dog I've ever had, if I'm honest. Because I think I'd had her for 6.5 years, and she was with me throughout, thick and thin. And sometimes it was just me and her. Before I was lucky enough to meet Gabby, it was just me and her. And losing her heavily affected me. So in no way is Luca a replacement for her, and no dog could ever replace her, because she was a special girl. But I do have a new puppy called Luca coming over, who's a Belgian Malinois, who is coming from Romania, actually, because when we visited Soren Floria, who's now a friend of mine, who I spent 8 hours with, he had a Belgian Malinois. He also had a Central Asian Shepherd, which is another lovely dog, which I'm planning one day to get one as well. And he happened to meet his dog trainer who was there, who bred these Belgian Malinois, and cut a long story short, that's how we're having a Belgian Malinois. And Gary actually is having as well, because I was in Germany with Gary, with Andy, and told him about the Belgian Malinois puppy. And he said, I like the idea of one of them, and decided he was having one. Long story. Luca's brother is coming over and he's going to be at Gary's, and yeah, coming over Sunday. Actually arrived from Romania. They've got a long trip ahead of them. They leave Friday and get here Sunday. So new puppy called Luca, who no doubt you'll be seeing some videos and photos of. And then once he's settled in here and he's bonded with us and what have you, then he's going to be going for training. And the plan is to train him up to full protection dog level. Because I want a dog that can protect not just me, mainly my family, my kids, Gabby, our property, and pigeons that I'll start to be keeping next year as well. So the plan is Luca will be trained up to a high level for protection work and ultimately be a very good guard dog. But for now, he's going to be coming in. He's a 4-month-old puppy. And so yeah, I'm excited to that. Robert van der Wen. Yeah, I know. Some of the videos of them are amazing, and I can't wait to get him. So, we'll see. Thank you for watching, folks. I will see you next week, 8 o'clock, Monday, UK time, for our last official show of 2019. And again, thank you for watching. It means a great deal to me. I love your feedback, good and bad. Thoughts, comments, let me know. I'm going to go and make one of my concoctions before I start losing my voice. And I will catch you next week. In the meantime, I will promise I will catch up on Facebook, and I'm working on Racing Pigeon Network launch, and I will catch up with your messages on Facebook. I promise by the next 48 hours I will catch up. I've got to figure a way of keeping on top of it, but I get bombarded. Like I said at the beginning of the show, the best way of getting hold of me is to WhatsApp or text me on my number, which is 07887 345 600. If you're outside of the UK, +44 7887 345 600. WhatsApp or text me, and you will always get a response back within one business day. And if it's urgent, you'll get a response back pretty quickly, within an hour or so. That's the best way of getting hold of me. Facebook is not the way of getting hold of me. I just cannot keep up. Moving forward into next year, I'm looking at getting some assistance with that, monitoring all the social media and helping with that, but for now I just can't keep up with it. But yeah, thank you for watching. Catch you all next week. Have a good rest of your week. Be lucky and keep flying.